just a quick intro. I'm Maria Eife. I make jewelry. Most of my work involves some digital technologies. The majority of it is built in CAD and 3D printed. In this talk, I will tell you a little bit about my past and then delve into my work and career so far by focusing on 4 themes, and it will look a little bit like this. Some of these are opposites in a way, but I like to think of them as more complementary ideas and ways that I can look both ways. Just a quick bit about my background. I grew up in South Jersey, which is just over the bridge from where I am now in South Philadelphia. Growing up, I always was interested in art. I took all the art classes available at my high school, including one called Arts and Crafts, where I sawed nickel silver with a jeweler's saw for the first time. This was not the moment I fell in love with jewelry, by the way. And a class called drafting, which is all done by hand, except for I remember there was one student in the class who was drawing a threaded screw in CAD, and I remember looking at that and thinking, that looks awful. I never want to do that. But here we are. So my first years of college were spent at the College of New Jersey, which was then called Trent State College. I was in the fine arts department. I got really lucky my second year when I signed up for the jewelry class. And Marjorie Simon was filling in for the sculpture professor who usually taught the class and was on sabbatical. I really don't think I would have fallen for the practice in the field if I hadn't had Marjorie to introduce it to me. I took her class in the fall semester and then independent study with her that spring. And then the following fall, I transferred to Tyler School of Art. And this is where I took my first CAD class, which at the time was really hard to love. I was just in my infancy of learning about and loving craft. And I loved being able to make things and then hold them and for jewelry, put them on. But this was all the way back in 1998. And the department didn't have a printer yet, and printing, the output was really not accessible yet. But when I look at it in hindsight, I think the value of taking hand classes, the studio classes, and the CAD class at the same time was really valuable. And I don't think I would have ever been able, wouldn't have figured out how to how things are built and understand how things move and fit together and fit on the body that we learned in the physical class. Which leads me to my first chapter, digital and hand. As I started working outside of school and 3D printing became more accessible and I didn't have a full studio set up to work, it became something that I just went to when I needed or wanted to make something. I use a 3D modeling program called Rhino, and the majority of my work is printed in an SLS nylon, which stands for selective laser sintering. And that's a process where a laser sinters or cures or hardens a powdered nylon to create a 3-dimensional form. Because I get asked this all the time, no, I do not own my own printer. The machine, last time I checked, wasn't $100,000 or $200,000. So I don't want it or can't buy it, or a little bit of both. This is a video from my 3D printing company that shows the machine and process and the scale of it. Another question I get asked a lot is how long does this piece or that piece take to print? And my only good answer for that is about 10 business days, which is about how long it takes for me to get it when I order it. They pack the machine in all dimensions like you're seeing here with this brick powder with lots of parts, so they wouldn't ever run it just for one piece. Then they sort of have to excavate the pieces out of the powder. Again, I can't do all that. Don't want to do all that. Don't need that set up at home. I often say that when I draw in CAD, my CAD drawing style is by hand, and what I mean by that is that I'm not using programming or writing code to create forms. I create lots of lines and plot points and probably do things the hard way. In this video, you can kind of see I don't know if you can actually see the points, but I do the profile curves and then plot at the points to space out the horizontal curves and use them to draw the cross-section curves. So each line I've placed by hand. And then I use the tool to add dimension to it, which you'll see momentarily. This is my grid egg. And the piece after it was finished. It's cast in sterling silver after it was printed. My first gridded object was the sphere cage bangle, and with that piece I enjoyed the ability to make an imperfect grid, sort of sketching the lines where I felt like it and didn't follow any pattern. Another shot of it. I sort of just click where things feel good, wherever I felt it looked good. But when I started making the regular grid objects, I got kind of hooked on the process and just was really satisfying. I made a whole series of different pendants. Were trickier than others to grid out. Here's one of my favorites. It's the donut grid, or torus. This one, looking good in Art City. I made some bangles also. And when I made these, I didn't know if the casting was going to work. I half expected to get a message saying, sorry, not gonna work. These wires are about like an 8.8 millimeter. Another shot of that. And the company I use for 3D printing partners with a caster and they do an incredible job. They won't tell me who's doing it, and I wish they would, because I'd like to send them some cookies or something, because I'm pretty sure they either hate me for these or they like the challenge. Either way. Also some gridded, more of the gridded pieces in nylon. And that brings me back around to the nylon. When I receive the prints, they are bright white and need to be washed, which is happening on the right side. And they're also porous, which is ideal for adding color. After they're washed, I dye them using fabric dyes. This is my chance to sort of get messy and play with color and possible unexpected outcomes, which is a nice balance to my computer work, which also sometimes has unexpected outcomes, but isn't so messy. I made some of my best and most favorite colors when I dug into my massive collection of stone beads, which I've bought over the years. And these are some chain necklaces that I made where I dyed the plastic to match the stones. And then I would throw a bunch of other pieces into the dye to sort of create a collection. Some of these pieces are almost one-offs because I never wrote down the color mixture. It's not in my practice to sort of take scientific notes on how I created them, because I would just sort of sprinkle and test and sprinkle and test. So for the life of me, I can't recreate this mint green, and it makes me very sad. Some more pieces dyed. I do a lot of testing with these broken prints. And this is a pile of test prints that I can't, test colors that I can't seem to throw out because they just are so pretty. And also it's a testament to my lack of color restraint. I use them all. All the parts are sprayed with a UV protective clear coat to seal in the color. In my back alley spray booth, it's very high tech, complete with alley cat. And here are a few of my favorite dyed pieces. This is a bangle. These are lava beads with little nylon caps that were dyed in a gradient. This was sprayed before I dyed it, and I got this marble effect. It took me a little while to realize that I wasn't trying to get a solid color, or that I didn't have to get a solid color, and that a gradient and irregularities actually made the piece more interesting. didn't need to recreate the look of like a mass-produced solid plastic bangle. It's one of my favorite color combos. Okay, next chapter, art business. This is my binary necklace made from laser cut wool felt. This piece really is what launched my business of production work, but it actually began as something that was intended as an art piece. I was only going to make two, one in black and one in white. It's a quick background of the story. The idea was to have the necklace use binary code to spell out miscommunication as a comment on digital communication, or digital miscommunication, really. The binary code for that was far too long for my intentions, so I changed it to what with a question mark, and that is the binary code. And just a peek into the process, I drew it in Adobe Illustrator using the type on path command, and cut and paste the code, and then played around with the font and size and scale and spacing until I was happy with the layout. And I quickly realized that this was a reproducible piece, and I made a lot of them in lots of colors. Probably too many at first. I'm looking at this. I had them for a while, in two different styles. And I added in some bracelets and pins and other things into the mix to like max out the material. This felt is pretty pricey. Here you're seeing the cut file, and the different colors indicate to the machine what order to cut. It was with these pieces I started my humble beginnings at doing craft shows and fairs. This was in 2010 in Philly, and my display is just not great. And I'm also noticing here that I had the necklaces for $40, which like nobody bought because it was too expensive, but now they're like twice the price because I realized that $40 was not enough. So they missed out on an opportunity there. I took them to the Martha Stewart Holiday Craft Show, where I also lowered the price to $35. And there's Martha. She did not buy one. And then I went to Valencia to the Design Boom Mart, which was a great experience. But like, yeah, I thought maybe I would get my, flight back, or, pay for my hostel, but it wound up being basically like dinner and a beer, but it was a great experience. Later, by chance, I met a sales rep whose specialty was museum shops, and she wound up selling quite a few to museum shops across the country. And then I sort of stopped focusing on them for a while, and more recently, I brought them to New York now because I did the wholesale show, and I sold a bunch to the Cooper Hewitt shop, and I felt like they needed work or something. They needed something. So I worked with a graphic designer, and we came up with some packaging to make them more like a grabbable, giftable thing. And I was also able to tell the story of the binary on there. Okay, in 2011, I was invited to the ACC Craft Show as a SNAG invited artist. Thanks again to Marjorie Simon on that one. And I was like 100% not ready for this, or so I thought. I wouldn't have applied, like fearful of the booth fee and the inventory that I didn't have, and setting up a 10 by 10 booth. And this is my first attempt at doing that. It also turned out to be a great experience. And a good kick in the pants for confidence, and the just knowing that I could do it. And for that show, I actually made my first 3D printed nylon pieces. These are some loop hoops and the loop lace bangle. Later that year, I applied to the PMA Craft Show also as an emerging artist with my newfound confidence. And I got in, which was a thrill because I've been going to that show since I took my first jewelry class in '97. I also remember going to that show and thinking how cool these people's lives must be. Yeah. And here's just a little progression of some booths culminating with my last in-person booth in 2019. I got walls. I also went to Sierrad in Amsterdam, where they give you this amazing little booth. So I didn't have to haul much, which was great. Oh, I just throw this one in there because on our way to Amsterdam, we stopped in Iceland, and it was November, and it was cold, and it was incredible. I highly recommend it. That was just a little break for myself and you. I went to Hoya and Barcelona. Again, like kind of tricky to bring stuff, to display stuff that you would pack in a suitcase. Not totally satisfied with what I did there, but and this was the PMA in 2018, which was about a month before my daughter was born. And the last show I did was PMA in 2019, when she was almost a year old. I had a floral designer friend work on my booth that year, and she did some really awesome installations. So I'll show you those too. Okay. I'm switching gears back to art. You may have heard some of this from Cappy this morning. I was really thrilled to be one of the invited artists who had the opportunity to go through the collection at the Mercer Museum and pick something to be inspired by. We got to go behind the glass and touch things with white gloves. It's an absolute treasure trove. If you are ever in the area, I highly recommend checking it out. And I am just going to, well, I'll read you my statement and sort of tell you about what I chose. I was 8 months pregnant the weekend we were invited to explore the collections at the Mercer Museum. I chose the dairy room, and more specifically the butter prints, as inspiration for my work. I was drawn to the motifs and the hand-carved wood, but also to the idea of molding butter. Butter is delicious, and beautiful butter is even better. And here you can kind of just see how I used the image and traced it in Illustrator to use some of the designs. It was not until after my daughter was born that it occurred to me that I was a dairy now too. Only my product and process was by social standards to be kept private. The breast pump flange, which is what that is missing from the object vocabulary of most people. They remain behind closed doors, sometimes in bathroom stalls and under draped fabrics. My decorative flanges are meant to draw attention and to celebrate the process, the object and the process. I made some in nylon and some in brass. It's a little demo of how it goes on in theory, and a photo of the installation. In this chapter, I will share some of my work I did for a solo show and tell the story of the JV Collective, and show some of the work that we've done as a group. In 2016, I had a solo show at the Jewelers Work Gallery in Washington, D.C. The cover shot is this pleated necklace. This is part of a collection I made to expand upon some pleated hoops that I'd made a few years earlier. And this was inspired by pleated fabric and fashion. And these pieces always confuse people because they expect them to be soft and give to the touch, but it's actually rigid and doesn't move at all. There's the hoops on, and there's some installation shots of the gallery. A few other pieces I made. These were an expansion on the Star Cage hoops, which I am wearing now, and I'll show you in the next slide. And these are all sort of based on like just structure. There's the hoops and a ring, some different silver earrings. Quite a few of my nylon pieces have movement. This piece is printed interlocked, all in one piece. So it's one of the more fun magic tricks of this process. Another piece that has some movement is this taper torque, which actually usually surprises people because the material is rigid, but depending on the geometry, it's actually quite flexible too. And remote control stopped working. Let's see if I can just make this play and see if that reconnects while it does it. So this is going to just zoom in on the design and how I designed in a split through the middle, so you can see how it that allows it to move. Okay. Oh, good, I got it back. Thank you, video, for giving me the time to do that. I thought that video was too long, but it turns out I needed it. And then you can also see the sort of zigzaggy cross section there, which I've repeated in quite a few pieces. And here's the video of the piece actually flexing, which when I do it in real life, sometimes people gasp. I don't know if that's happening. It's quite a bit of flex. Okay. And here's a few more pieces that I made. Well, I made these using that same zigzaggy cross section. Same with these, some earrings. I mean, a pendant. And some earrings that I made in 2 parts, which is the only time I've ever done that. And it's something I think I need to do more of, assembling different parts. Okay, moving on. At the end of 2015, I moved my studio from my house to a new mixed-use space housed in what was formerly a vocational high school in South Philadelphia. It's an 8-story behemoth, which is only just now close to having all the floors renovated and occupied. I can go on about this space, but I don't have time. Just know that if you're ever in Philly, come by and visit. There is a bar on the roof. And being the tallest building for miles in any direction, the views are A+. The first 6 months, I was in a small space on the first floor, and then I moved up to a bigger space with some others, and we formed the JV Collective. JV is a play on the high school theme, but also short for jewelers and the Roman numeral for 5, which is how many of us there were in the beginning. This is our space, which actually used to be the vice principal's office. There's a little room out front too, which I imagine was where people sat and waited to get in trouble. One of the first things we did as a collective was a group show in Munich during Jewelry Week called Sirens. This is the postcard, which was drawn by Melanie Belanker. It was an awesome basement painting studio that the tenants cleared out completely for the week to rent for Jewelry Week. It's a little install, and one of the highlights was Helen Britton bringing us a tube of cookies. It's pretty great. We brought Sirens to the Baltimore Jewelry Center later that year, and also to New York City Jewelry Week. And here's the whole group of JV Collective. And clockwise, we have Lucy Jockle, Mallory Weston, Leslie Boyd, Melanie Belanker, Emily Cobb, and Sarah Rachel Brown. And here's where I'd like to emphasize how great it is to work as a collective. Pulling off these 3 shows in 1 year would not have been possible without the strength in numbers and diverse skill sets. And I was especially grateful by the time New York City Jewelry Week rolled around, because I was very pregnant, and I pretty much just showed up to that one. So thanks for that one again, you guys. I'll show you the piece that I'm posing next to a little bit later, because I'm resembling it quite a bit. And last October, we converted our sync room, which is a second space we had down the hall, into a gallery space. And we had our first exhibition there of our own work during the ACC conference, which was held here in Philly. Here's a shot of the install. And it actually turned out to be the last show we had in our space so far. We had big plans for this past May when Snag was supposed to be in Philly. But, you know. Part of the plans for that was a call for entry for an exhibition of necklaces that were going to be installed in the lockers in the hallway, which you see here. And we decided, after a lot of delays, to go ahead with the exhibition and host it virtually. Here's one of the call for entries that Mallory Weston made. And just a quick look at all of these call for entry posts that Emily Cobb did on Instagram. They're just like fun to look at. It took many Zoom hours to draw the 100-ish entries and design on about 30. We recently received all the work and had a photographer shoot it throughout the school. There will be a catalog/zine and a website launching in conjunction with New York City Jewelry Week. Okay, last chapter. I will use this chapter to talk about some short residencies I attended and how the time and space to think and experiment at the residencies led to work that I completed at home. I think a lot of you will recognize this as Haystack. In 2015, I participated in the Open Studio residency, which I highly recommend anyone applying to. It's amazing on all levels. I did a lot of different things when I was there, but one of them was in their fab lab. I used their laser cutter to do some engraving on mother of pearl. And back home, probably more than a year later, I made this brooch, which was printed and cast in sterling silver and set with the mother of pearl. And this one too. And on both of these, I inked the engraved lines to darken them, sort of like scrimshaw. Another dreamy coastal retreat. In 2017, I was invited to the Smitten Forum, which was held in Mendocino that year. On the plane ride there, I sketched these little bodies during my, and which you see on the left. And during my week, I formed them into links with silverware. I also did quite a bit of shell collecting. The links became a 6.5 foot necklace, affectionately known as the Lady Lynx. And a few years later, still, when I was making work for the JV Collective Siren Show, I went back to these 2 residencies actually and combined the ideas. I sketched the body on a mother of pearl to get a general idea of scale, and then used the sketch to create the engraving lines in Illustrator, and then engraved that pattern with the laser cutter. And this was taken after the piece was sawed out by hand. The laser doesn't do a great job, doesn't do any job at cutting. Well, the one that I have couldn't cut out the mother of pearl. And here's the final piece set in sterling silver and the 2 others in the collection. Future. Yeah, question mark. When I was thinking about this and like ending it with the future chapter, I was thinking I'd make some grand announcement about the shift I foresee in my work or career or future. And when I was writing it, I realized that I would be making that up. I was hoping it would come to me, but it didn't. So yeah, I don't really know. There's so much uncertainty, and I'm trying to be easy on myself and remind myself that a pandemic is not necessarily a time you should be thriving, unlike a lot of the chatter that you see on social media about people living their best quarantine lives. And with the election coming up and everything, there's just a lot of uncertainty. But I do know that I would love to do some shows again someday. Looking through my photos, I realized that it is something that I miss, maybe less shows, but I wasn't doing a ton to begin with. So I'd love to travel again, possibly do some family-friendly residency, which I've been looking into. But it's been really good to get off my own hamster wheel. It's given me time to reflect and think about what I do want to spend my time doing, which I don't know yet. I have some short-term goals. I want to update my website. I want to make a swing for my daughter so we can avoid the playgrounds during flu season. And maybe make some work that does not have a deadline, which is something I rarely do. And also in the future, but secretly right now, because it's actually open today, the Smithsonian Craft Show online, which is hosted through BidSquare. And you can link to that. I'll put my website on the last slide. And there's a link to it there. And in November, also, my dear friends Stacy and Joe have generously they're generously hosting a show called No Fair, which I think is fantastic, for artists who've lost business due to canceled shows. And they're going to man the show for about 3 weeks in Philly. So if you're in the area, make an appointment. It's going to be great. And that's all I got. Thank you. There's my website.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you. Got through it. Just a little technical.
Yeah, it's nothing. So the first question that we have is, are you ever concerned about the dye bleeding from your work onto garments?
I have not experienced that yet, and I've been doing it for a long time. That part of that is I do a lot of rinsing, and then I seal it like maybe 2 or 3 times with a clear coat. So it's locked in. Super long term, like there's like 50 years from now, maybe the color will fade a little bit, but as far as leaking, we haven't had that problem yet.
Excellent. The next question we have is, thanks for your presentation, Maria. I love your work. My question is, what company do you use for output? Do you use Shapeways?
I do use Shapeways, yes.
Ta-da!
For everything, pretty much. I was looking around for somebody else to do metal, but nobody wants to cast those grid things. They've said no, flat out no.
Esther Irvin asks, Maria, have you considered merging your mechanical forms with the organic forms?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, I haven't really. It's funny that it really does sort of live a little bit in separate parts of my collection and brain. It's a nice idea. I'll get back to you on that. Yeah, there's certain things that I do because it's like a technical thing. Like I've figured out how to make something in this way, but like, yeah, I'm just trying to think of how I would do it. Stay tuned. It's a good idea.
Towards the beginning of your talk, you mentioned you met a rep to sell your work to museum shops, which sounds like it was successful. Can you talk more about that process for up-and-coming makers?
Yeah, actually, like I took out the part where I said that it really, I didn't, I look at that as something that like where I learned how to deal with a rep and sales rep, but I didn't price my work right to include the fee that she charged. It was just sort of like, I feel like I met her and she's like, I can take them to the museum shops. And I said, okay. And, I did make some money, but not a ton. And I can't say that like, I know how to reach out to somebody because I just met her at like, through a work party. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but what is helpful is to make sure you're making money and to add in the sales rep fee into your wholesale price. Like I was like, oh, how much do people buy this for, without really, it was early. I was learning. Yeah, they got my name out there, so
yeah,
I made some money.
Beth Petrick asks, what is the what is the best way to get into craft shows and galleries while being true to your style?
I mean, being true to your style is like almost the answer there in a way. And because if you are, I mean, I don't think there's really much you can do without being true to your style, because then I feel like you kind of like lose it. Start applying. I mean, I like I said, like I feel like I wouldn't have applied, which was I regret, and I tell people now, like, even if you think you're not ready, just put together your images and put in your application and make yourself ready when you get there. I also don't know if that answers it completely, but
Yeah.
apply
Good.
and
Apply.
be true to
Do
yourself.
it. Yeah.
Take good photos. Take really, really good photos.
Sage.
Or
Sage
have
advice.
somebody else do it. Yeah.
Even more sage.
Yeah.
Abraham asks, I love how your pregnancy informed amazing work. Do you feel any inspiration for new work stirring since becoming a mother?
Yeah, it's different. I don't know, and it sort of just happened too. It's funny with that, the woman form where she's looking very pregnant. I made that before I was pregnant, and I kind of sometimes I look at that as I like accidentally made my own fertility figure or something, because she is like completely like the Venus of Willendorf, right?
Yeah.
And I made that like a month before I got pregnant, not on purpose. I mean, whatever. I didn't make it on purpose, is what I meant to say. I didn't make it on purpose. And now that I have a little person, yeah, I do. I think. I mean, I want to make her stuff all the time, but this is not really appropriate for a 2-year-old. I do have an idea to make her. I had this idea, and I still have. It's on my like to-do list, is to make her this gold bangle that would start out like, this small, and then as she gets older, just like tap it down the mandrel to stretch it out. But I haven't brought myself to Brit because I wanted it to be gold. I haven't splurged on the material, and now the prices are like. So yeah, I mean, yeah, everything's different now, basically.
Yeah. We've got one note, and that is, do you know that there's a butter museum in Cork, Ireland?
No, I'm going.
Yeah.
When I can. That's awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've never been back.
Let's see, there's one question in the chat that's, I can't see who it's from, unfortunately, but now that you know how to use the 3D software, can you make anything you want, or is there still a challenge to create certain pieces?
Yeah, no, definitely still a challenge to create certain pieces. I know how to make what I know how to make at this point, but there's like, I just super recently, I was almost every time I make something new, I learn something new. When I made those flanges, it was like, oh, there's the program is so dense, and there's a lot that I don't use in it because I like I said, I took CAD, and like 2000 was like the last time I took a CAD class. So I probably could benefit from some updates. Yeah, I can't build anything. But I could learn how to build anything.
Yeah. I think there's how should I phrase this? The parallels between textiles and working with a singular strand and making a garment or a fabric or a plane out of it seems really similar to what you're doing with 3D printing. And it's not something that I've ever considered together as, but in working with like dyeing and the sort of linear construction, do you look to any textile manufacturing or weaving or that
Not
sort of
really.
making?
I mean, I'm 100% like in awe of it, and I'm inspired by it. But like technically, I don't understand it. Like I don't know. I can't do it myself. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think visually, I'm like kind of faking it in a way. But it's definitely an inspiration. I would love to take a weaving class. I think that there's actually in the studio that I showed you, there's a couple weavers actually, and one of them has workshops, and I'd love to learn how to sit at the loom.
Yeah. Just a nice thought. You ended your talk with a what, and you began your talk with the binary code with what, which brings us full circle.
I didn't even notice that.
Really pleasant.
Yeah, I have all the answers clearly.
How is JV working during quarantine? Are you guys in a bubble?
No, we kind of like send text message. Well, we got together that one time to take the photos masked, and one time in a park to drink beer and wine. But we kind of everybody's doing work. Some people are working from home. We're not all there at the same time. Basically, I'll send a text message like, "Anybody going to be in 214 today?" Or down the hall at 220. So we're not really there, and that's sort of always the case. There wasn't ever a time when everybody was there at once. So
Excellent. Well, thank you
yeah.
so much, Maria. That was a
Thank
wonderful
you.
presentation.
Thanks,
So
everybody.
our next presentation will be at 1 p.m. Please enjoy your lunch. And during that time, if you get a chance, please look at the silent auction. Please view the spotlight presentations that are up on the site. And there's the founder's video and the history of the Northwest Jewelry and Metal Arts Symposium that you can look at as well. So look forward to seeing you all again at 1 o'clock. Bye.
Thank you.